The RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge investigation has been hard to pin down to one version of events because no one involved seems to have the same memory, even if standing right next to each other, as Staff Sergeant Jim Penniston and Airman First Class John Burroughs were in Rendlesham Forest after midnight, December 26, 1980. Each man has different memories. Staff Sergeant Jim Penniston was the Charlie Flight Security Supervisor for flight operations at RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge and investigated crash sites. As he walked around this almost 9-foot-long, 6-foot-high black triangular craft in awe, he thought that it looked like solid glass with glowing circles and other patterns moving in its glassy skin. But Sergeant Penniston was also confused because he thought if it were some kind of flying machine, it should be made of metal, not glass. He sketched the black triangular craft in his notebook and says he also took many photographs of the triangle from all sides. Those photographs have never surfaced publicly, but a Captain Mike Verano was supposed to have gathered canisters of film, photos, documents, and Colonel Charles Halt's audio tape that he recorded on December 28, 1980, when he and a team of military personnel investigated beams and lights in Rendlesham Forest. Those canisters of evidence were allegedly flown to the 3rd Air Force in Ramstein, Germany, where General Charles A. Gabriel served until June 1982 as Commander-in-Chief, United States Air Force in Europe, and Commander of Allied Air Forces Central Europe. The assumption is that he saw everything in the canisters, but kept the policy of denial and cover-up in place. Without ever talking about the Rendlesham Forest mystery on the record, General Gabriel died in September 2003. Sergeant Penniston says that he also dragged his fingers along the smooth, warm to touch, black glassy surface until he felt raised symbols spanning about 3 feet of the craft near one of its corners. As soon as his fingers touched the symbols, he received a telepathic download of zeros and ones, binary code that filled his mind's eye and would not leave until back at his Ipswich home, where he wrote the binary code down in his notebook. And according to Sergeant Penniston, he never showed the numbers in his notebook to anyone, not at the time and not even to John Burroughs. John doesn't remember seeing Jim or the black triangular craft or the camera or hearing anything from Sergeant Penniston about receiving a download of zeros and ones after touching the symbols and writing them down in a notebook. In fact, none of us knew about or had seen binary code in Jim Penniston's notebook until October 2nd, 2010, when John, Jim, and I were working with the Ancient Aliens series produced by Prometheus Entertainment for the History Channel. At the end of the day, when interviews were done and the crew was about to wrap up, Jim asked John if he had ever showed him the zeros and ones in his notebook that Jim then pulled out of a briefcase. John and I looked at the several pages of zeros and ones, and John seemed genuinely shocked, saying he had never seen the notebook numbers before. And that's when Jim Penniston said that for 30 years, he had not shown or discussed the binary code with anyone. The Ancient Aliens producers and I agreed that we would each investigate the binary code pages to see if they could be translated. I worked with American retired astronomer and telescope maker Michael Reed, PhD, who had constructed telescopes at the University of Arizona. Using standard ASCII 7-bit and 8-bit code where combinations of 7 and 8 groups of zeros and ones can be translated to numbers, letters, and pronunciation. For example, on the top line of this ASCII code chart, the number 0 equals 0011, a space, 0000. And to the far right, the lowercase letter m equals 0110 space 1101. Working each page at a time and marking off the string of numbers in ASCII code, words emerged on the right side which, put together, look like this. Exploration of humanity, possibly the numbers 333 or 666, and then the number 8100. Continuing the binary code, there is a latitude and longitude, followed by the word continuous. The latitude-longitude shown here is 52 space 0942532 north latitude and 1 space 3131269 longitude. Because Peniston's string of zeros and ones in his notebook had no designation for where decimal points should be in any of the latitudes and longitudes given, this latitude and longitude is only one interpretation, and more about that in a minute. After the word continuous are the words for planetary advance. Then comes fourth coordinate, continuous question mark, all caps CEPR question mark, and the word before. The last letter E of the word before are the final 0100 space 0101 that Staff Sergeant Peniston wrote on this page of his notebook. Exploration of humanity 8100, latitude, longitude question mark, continuous for planetary advance, fourth coordinate, continuous question mark, and the word before. Since there were no decimal designators in any of the stream of zeros and ones, the latitude-longitude could be any number of 24 possible geographic options on Earth. Dr. Reed picked one that he thought was logical, Town Center Woodbridge. The idea was that if the black triangle were an unmanned drone with some kind of mission on Earth, it would have to constantly be sending its location and receiving instructions from its maker. The Woodbridge, England Town Hall latitude and longitude is close to one of the binary code latitude-longitude options. Another interpretation by the Ancient Aliens TV production, using a different and arbitrary placement of the decimal point, ended up further west from Woodbridge in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Ireland, where old maps like this one from 1570 labeled an island as Brazil, spelled B-R-A-S-I-L, also known as High Brazil, highlighted by a yellow circle next to it. The last documented sighting of High Brazil was in 1872, when author T.J. Westrop and several companions literally saw the island appear and then vanish. This was Mr. Westrop's third view of the Irish island, but on this trip he had brought his mother and some friends to verify its existence when, for reasons unknown, the small island disappeared before their eyes. Sergeant Peniston also deliberately held back from the public other pages of binary code in his notebook until 2011. And then he released these other geographic locations that he said were also encoded in his telepathic binary download. They included Caracol, Belize, Sedona, Arizona, the Great Pyramid in Giza, Egypt, the Nazca lines in Peru, Taishan Q in China, the portal at the Temple of Apollo in Naxos, Greece, and these strange words, eyes of your eyes. And then that word origin with a latitude and longitude, which could be High Brazil or the town center of Woodbridge, England, or 22 other locations on Earth. The origin year 8100. Does that mean year 8100? From the 21st century, that is not 40,000 years in the future, which is a time frame that Jim Peniston thought might be true to that black triangle in the forest. But perhaps the number 8100 in the alien world of other dimensions and point-to-point travel has a different context. What does this all mean? Penniston told us that a few weeks after his and John's December 26, 1980 light encounters in Rendlesham Forest, that he was ordered to do a sodium pentothal hypnosis by US and UK intelligence agents. The agents seemed to already know about lights transmitting binary code, and they told Penniston they knew that he was not telling them everything. After that hypnosis, Penniston worried that the drug-induced hypnosis session had manipulated his mind, or they tried to erase his memory, and he wanted to remember what happened more clearly. 14 years later, Jim Penniston contacted doctor and hypnotherapist Sharon Grossman in Illinois to see if he could find out more. Staff Sergeant Jim Penniston's interrogators at RAF Bantwaters Woodbridge already seemed to have prior knowledge about glowing lights, craft, symbols, and binary code. Jim's hypnosis session to find out what they got from him in that pentothal hypnosis was on September 10, 1994, with Sharon Grossman. In these next excerpts, even though Jim insists he had not told anyone about touching the ray symbols on the craft or getting binary transmission into his mind, the American and the British intelligence agents already knew about the symbols and wanted Jim to tell them more. Jim Penniston, quote, "I see the craft. The lights dissipate. They, the intelligence agents, they want to know what symbols I'm seeing. I don't want to tell them, but I tell them. They want to know what I did next. I said, I felt the symbols because they were raised. I tell them about the lights, white light. They already know about the lights. They're asking me if I see binary code. I do see the binary code. They are slowing me down." The hypnotherapist asks, "What's happening now?" "I understand." "What do you understand about the code?" "I'm the interpreter. They need interpreters, the lights." "The lights? So what is the code saying?" "You can't read these codes unless you have an interpreter. I understand what's going on now. The symbols, what do they mean?" "Oh, it's information being exchanged. That machine, the black triangular craft, that's for interpreters. There are lots of interpreters." "You are an interpreter?" "Yes." "Can you interpret that code for me?" "Yes." "We'll do that now." Explain, mission, purpose. And the mission is contact. Do they say contact with what? Us. Purpose, research. For, to help them. To help them with what? Themselves. They are time travelers. They are us. They are us from the future. How far in the future? A long time, very long time. Penniston thinks 40,000 years in the future. What do they need from here? They need something from all interpreters. Well, what do they need? I'm not sure, but it has to do with chromosomes or something like that. And how do they get that? They take it. From where? From the other people's bodies. Where did they take it from you? Didn't. But you were an interpreter. We only interrupted. They, the time travelers, were interrupted. They are having problems. The programs, I understand what they are saying, but they weren't supposed to be there. They are having problems. The odds are against them. You weren't supposed to understand the program? No, by touching these things, the ray symbols on the craft, I activated these symbols, the zeros and the ones. You touch the symbols and you set off a program? Yes. The craft was repairing itself. All they wanted was a place to stay while it repaired itself. And by touching the symbols, you disrupted the repair program? I activated a binary code. The two government men want to know why. They ask me if I ever had any other encounters with them, the lights and the time travelers, before. I haven't. Are they using us something like breeding stock? No, like Band-Aids. Do they ever take fetuses? If it is task, they do. There are different ships for tasking. The government agents know about this. That's why they want to contain the situation. They see you as requiring damage control? Yes. They see me and John Burroughs, and they're worried about Colonel Holt. They know all about us. Does the government believe what you are saying about them coming from the future? Oh, yes. This time, the time travelers, were having problems, but they got their machine off. They have to be out in space to travel. They need speed to travel. To travel through time? To go backwards. They can't go forward. They can't go into their future. They go to their past. It's impossible to go into the future. It takes too much energy. How far into the past can they go? These ships can go 40 or 50,000 years. They can't go back much further. They might not be able to get back. Well, why do they come back so far? So it doesn't affect the timeline. The farther it is, the better. The least effect it has on changing the future. They can't control it. It's too cumbersome. What are the intelligence agents going to do with you? They tell me when I was at the Eastgate with John, they have 5 different stories to tell. It's important to scramble dates. That confuses and undermines the consistency of eyewitness testimonies, so no credibility with the public and the media. They're going to give me a warning. They tell me that I will hurt the world. It will breach national security and can destroy the system, cause wars, chaos in the streets. That's why it's so important to keep it quiet. But it doesn't make any difference if I talk about the story because it's too unbelievable, close quote. When we were in England, December 2010, for the 30th anniversary TV production with Ancient Aliens, John became increasingly certain that he and Jim Penniston must have been further to the south, in the forest across from the finger of trees that juts between the big field and the smaller Capel Green. Where the white arrow ends in Rendlesham Forest next to Capel Green is where we explored, and Jim Penniston began to recall the traumatic night long ago.
This is the area. I mean, I got it. It's recall. Yeah, I almost broke our neck down. We didn't know the fence was there. That's the problem. We thought we just crossed one up here, and then all of a sudden we weren't expecting the second fence. That's what happened, you know?
And so this house right here on the other side of this finger of trees is the one that Holt said glowed.
Yeah, that did glow. But the actual house that we're talking about, the barnyard's right down here in front of us. So.
And now, okay, so...
You can't see it from here.
Do you think that you guys ran out into that field and that finger is where the water is?
Yeah, and you know why we're wet? Because we're running this way across it. We're pursuing the light at that point. Yeah, this is it. I'm okay with it. Landing site is in here somewhere. I don't know. This really close to that. came up. Hit the ground here. In here, this berming area. Yeah, we're close. I can't give you a pinpoint exact spot.
So somewhere back in there is the spot where you touched the craft and the symbols.
Yeah, we came in a logger room, yeah. As far as, it probably didn't go as far, the trees were probably different then.
And now the issue is, what was the angle that you ran out into the field?
That's there, I was helping to debate, I don't know. I can't determine that. I can't determine that. You know. It's blurry. It's blurry. There's another one. They're all over.
Yeah, but boy, does this feels like that ghouliest photo.
Jim and John remembered getting wet and cold, but neither could remember where that happened until we explored this finger of trees and found this marshy water. The water was about 300 feet east of the Rendlesham Forest site next to Capel Green that Jim and John felt was where they had their close encounter. The water is in the finger of trees that extends into the farm field on the north end of Capel Green, and it would explain how both men got wet around 4 a.m. on December 28, 1980, as they ran from the forest encounter site out into Capel Green, chasing the lights. After midnight on December 26, 2010, the exact 30th anniversary of the original first encounter with the mysterious lights and beams, we stayed up all night, and Jim and John walked with a tri-field meter through the big field down to the line of Rendlesham Forest trees along Capel Green. At the red circle on this map, the tri-field meter pegged out on the electric scale, indicating strong electrostatic energy. The next night, after midnight on December 27th, I was with John and British engineer Winston Keach for a night watch in Capel Green. And this is an infrared video frame, and the white image is the heat given off by John and Winston. I was running an infrared video camera when the two men approached the finger of trees with the tri-field meter. Just like the night before, the needle pegged out on the electric scale at about the same place that was only some 300 feet from the Rendlesham Forest UFO site of the black, glassy triangle. While John and Winston were exploring along the finger of trees, they both thought that they saw small blue lights. Here is one of Winston's time-lapse camera frames that captured a blue light moving through trees and anomalous orange-red lights in front of the trees. In this photo, Jim and John walked straight toward my camera from the Rendlesham Forest site, behind them onto Capel Green. The marshy finger of trees is to the right. The Capel Green field also seems to match John Burroughs' handwritten statement about the December 26, 1980 night when John and Sergeant Peniston walked out of Rendlesham Forest, tripped on a wire fence, crossed over into a small field that would have been Capel Green, and went forward following lights into trees where they got wet. So between the end of the straight white road and the edge of Capel Green is the white circle where both John and Jim now are convinced they encountered the lights up close in Rendlesham Forest. Straight east is the red circle where the tri-field meter pegged on the electric scale after midnight on both December 26th and December 27th, 2010. Capel Green also has the space needed for all the light-alls, trucks, and people that Bentwater's Deputy Base Commander, Charles Halt, organized on December 28, 1980. Remember that Airman Laurie Bowen and John Trementozzi, on December 27, 1980, after midnight, were at the East Gate when they both heard on their military radio the D Flight Shift Commander Bonnie Tamplin was crying out in fear to Master Sergeant Robert Ball in Rendlesham Forest. The airmen knew that all the base colonels were notified, including Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Charles Holt. And John Burroughs learned a light had entered Lieutenant Tamplin's vehicle, causing her to panic so greatly that she was relieved of duty. We also were told that Lieutenant Tamplin never did return to work at RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge. Colonel Holt told me that one beam came down to the ground only a few feet from his shoes, and he was confused about whether that was an act of aggression or not. But Colonel Holt gave John Burroughs and Sergeant Adrian Bustinza permission to go closer toward the lights. Sergeant Bustinza told John and me that he saw a red-orange aerial light surround John. And suddenly, Sergeant Bustinza was on the ground and John Burroughs does not remember what happened, except that later Bustinza told John, quote, "The light forced me to the ground, and I saw the red-orange light come over you," close quote. And that was the second time in 72 hours that Airman First Class John Burroughs was engulfed in bright light and terahertz radiation from unidentified aerial phenomena. Within a year of the December 1980 Rendlesham Forest light encounters, John Burroughs, only 21 years old, became ill and was diagnosed with a heart murmur, which he did not have when he joined the Air Force at age 18 in 1978. 30 years later, on that anniversary TV production in Woodbridge, none of us, including John Burroughs, expected that within a month of returning to the United States, John Burroughs would become very ill. Throughout 2011 to December 18, 2013, he was in and out of hospitals with atrial fibrillation problems in his heart. By December 18, 2013, John had to have life-saving surgery, and the information that saved him came from a CIA medical doctor who knew that the UFO-UAP phenomenon emits terahertz frequencies that can manipulate human minds and damage human tissues, including human hearts. This is Linda Moulton Howe. Please stay tuned to my Truth Hunter series on Gaia for more surprises about our universe, this solar system, and the planet we live on.